Maya Chin kept her head down in seat 14B, hiding behind her book and oversized hoodie. She didn't want attention. She didn't want questions. But when both pilots collapsed and the captain's desperate voice asked for fighter pilots over the intercom, her past came rushing back, and 267 passengers would live or die based on what she did next. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Maya Chin had perfected the art of being invisible. At 28 years old, she had learned exactly how to blend into crowds, avoid eye contact, and make sure nobody looked at her twice. She sat in seat 14B, the middle seat of a Boeing 737, wearing a gray hoodie pulled low over her face. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Black framed glasses perched on her nose. In her hands was a thick novel that she pretended to read while actually staring at the same page for the last 20 minutes. The flight from Seattle to Miami was packed. 267 passengers, mostly families heading to vacation destinations. The man in 14A was a businessman already asleep against the window. The woman in 14C was a tourist watching a movie on her tablet with headphones on. Perfect. Nobody noticed Maya. Nobody asked her questions. Nobody knew. That's how she wanted it. For the past 2 years, Maya had been living a quiet life. She worked as a graphic designer from her small apartment. She ordered groceries online. She avoided social gatherings. She was invisible, unremarkable, forgettable. It was safer that way. The flight attendant came by with the beverage cart. "What would you like to drink?" "Water, please," Maya said quietly, barely making eye contact. The flight attendant smiled and moved on without a second glance. Good. Maya sipped her water and went back to pretending to read. The plane was cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet. Everything was normal. Just another boring flight. Just another day of being nobody. She liked being nobody. Being somebody had nearly destroyed her. Maya was actually dozing when she heard raised voices from the front of the cabin. She opened her eyes slightly, peering over the top of her book. 2 flight attendants were having an urgent conversation near the galley. Their faces were tense, worried. One of them, a young man named Derek, kept glancing toward the cockpit door. Something was wrong. Maya's training kicked in automatically. She assessed the situation with eyes that had been trained to notice details. The flight attendants were trying to stay calm, but their body language screamed panic. Derek picked up the intercom phone, then put it down. Picked it up again. Other passengers were starting to notice too. The businessman in 14A woke up, looking around with confusion. Then Derek made an announcement, his voice trying to sound calm but cracking slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, is there a doctor on board? We have a medical situation. Any doctors, please press your call button." 3 passengers pressed their call buttons. Derek rushed to speak with them, and they all hurried toward the front of the plane, disappearing behind the first-class curtain. "What's going on?" the woman in 14C asked, pulling off her headphones. "I don't know," Maya said quietly, pulling her hoodie lower. But she did know. Or at least she could guess. A medical emergency serious enough to need multiple doctors? That meant someone critical was ill. And on a plane the most critical people were. The intercom crackled to life. But this time it wasn't a flight attendant's voice. It was deeper, strained, clearly in pain. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Rodriguez. We have a situation. Captain Miller he's collapsed. We think it's a heart attack. The doctors are with him now. I want everyone to remain calm. I am fully qualified to fly this aircraft, and we will be making an emergency landing in Dallas, which is approximately 30 minutes away." The cabin erupted in nervous murmurs. Some passengers gasped. A child started crying somewhere behind Maya. Maya's heart rate increased, but her face remained calm. 1 pilot down. That was manageable. The first officer could land the plane. They would be fine. But then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Through the open cockpit door, left open because of the emergency, she heard First Officer Rodriguez's voice, not on the intercom but talking to someone. "I don't feel good either. My chest, it's tight. I can't." Then a crash. The sound of something, or someone, falling. Derek emerged from the cockpit, his face white as a sheet. He grabbed the intercom handset with shaking hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need everyone to remain calm." His voice was high-pitched now, barely controlled. "First Officer Rodriguez has also fallen ill. Both pilots are unconscious. The doctors are doing everything they can." Silence. Complete shocked silence. Then chaos. Passengers started shouting, crying, standing up. The woman in 14C grabbed Maya's arm. Oh my God, we're going to crash. Maya gently removed the woman's hand. We're not going to crash. Stay calm. But inside, Maya's mind was racing through scenarios. 2 pilots down. No one flying the plane. The autopilot could keep them in the air, but it couldn't land. They needed someone who could fly. Derek's voice came over the intercom again, desperate now. Is there anyone on board with pilot experience? Anyone who has ever flown an aircraft? Please, if you have any flight experience at all, press your call button now. 5 or 6 call buttons lit up across the cabin. Derek rushed to each one. I have my private pilot's license, one man said. But I've only flown small Cessnas. I took flying lessons 20 years ago, a woman said. But I never finished. I fly drones, a teenager offered. Derek's face fell with each response. These people couldn't land a commercial jet. They needed someone with real experience, someone who had flown jets, someone who... Any fighter pilots? Derek's voice cracked as he made one more announcement. This is a long shot, but is there anyone on board who has experience flying military jets? Any fighter pilots? Anyone from the Air Force, Navy, Marines? Maya's hands gripped her book so hard her knuckles turned white. She stared at the page, not breathing. Fighter pilots. He was asking for fighter pilots. She could help. She knew she could help. She had thousands of hours in high-performance jets. She had landed on aircraft carriers in storms. She had flown combat missions. She could land this 737 with her eyes closed. But if she revealed herself, everything would come out. Her identity. Her past. The thing she'd been running from for 2 years. The cabin was silent. Nobody pressed their call button. Derek looked like he was about to cry. Please. If there's anyone, we have 267 people on this plane. Children. Families. Please. Maya closed her eyes. She saw faces. Her squadron. Her wingmen. The mission that had gone wrong. The discharge. The shame. But she also saw the faces around her. The crying child. The terrified mother. The businessman who had been sleeping peacefully just minutes ago. 267 people. With shaking hands, Maya reached up and pressed her call button. Derek practically ran to row 14. Yes? Do you have flight experience? Maya slowly lowered her hood. She removed her glasses. They were just plain glass anyway, part of her disguise. She looked up at Derek with eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. My name is Maya Chen, she said quietly. Former Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy. I flew F/A-18 Super Hornets off the USS Ronald Reagan for 6 years. I have 2,000 hours in fighter jets and 147 carrier landings. Derek's mouth fell open. You're a fighter pilot? Maya corrected. I haven't flown in 2 years. But yes. The passengers around her were staring now. The quiet girl in the hoodie was a Navy fighter pilot? Can you land this plane? Derek asked desperately. Maya stood up, pulling off her hoodie. Underneath, she wore a simple t-shirt, but the way she carried herself had changed. Her shoulders were back. Her voice was stronger. Take me to the cockpit. As she walked down the aisle, passengers watched in stunned silence. Some were crying with relief. Others looked skeptical. This young woman who had been sitting quietly reading was going to save them? Maya ignored them all. Her mind was already in pilot mode, running through procedures, thinking about systems, preparing for what she would find in the cockpit. Derek opened the cockpit door. Maya stepped inside and felt a wave of familiarity wash over her. It had been 2 years since she'd been in a cockpit, but it felt like coming home. Captain Miller was lying on the floor, 3 doctors working on him. First Officer Rodriguez was slumped in the right seat, being attended to by another doctor. Both stable but unconscious, one doctor reported. We think carbon monoxide poisoning. Something's wrong with the air system. Maya nodded. That made sense. Carbon monoxide was odorless and could incapacitate pilots quickly, if there was a leak in the system. But she couldn't worry about that now. Right now she needed to fly this plane. She moved to the captain's seat and sat down. The instrument panel lit up before her. Altitude, speed, heading, navigation displays. It was different from an F/A-18, but the principles were the same. What's your name? She asked Derek. Derek Martinez. Okay, Derek. I need you to be my co-pilot. You don't need to fly, just do exactly what I tell you. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Good. First, get those doctors and the pilots out of here. We need space to work. The medical team carefully moved both pilots into the first-class cabin. Now it was just Maya and Derek. Maya took a deep breath. She reached out and touched the controls. The yoke felt solid under her hands. The throttles were within easy reach. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's fly." Maya quickly scanned the instruments. They were at 35,000 feet, cruising at 460 knots. The autopilot was engaged, thank God. That gave her time to assess. "Derek, see that radio panel?" She pointed. "I need you to contact air traffic control. Tell them we have a situation." Derek picked up the microphone with shaking hands. How do I? Press the button on the yoke when you want to talk. See this frequency? That's already set to Dallas Center. Just talk." Derek pressed the button. "Hello? This is, Flight 447. We have an emergency." "Flight 447, Dallas Center, go ahead." Maya took the microphone from Derek. "Dallas Center, Flight 447. Both pilots are incapacitated due to suspected carbon monoxide poisoning. I am Lieutenant Commander Maya Chin, former U.S. Navy pilot, currently the only person on board capable of flying this aircraft. I'm declaring an emergency and requesting immediate landing clearance at the nearest suitable airport." There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on, calmer, more authoritative. "Flight 447, this is Dallas Center Supervisor. Did you say you're a Navy pilot?" "Affirmative. F/A-18 Super Hornet, 6 years, 2,000 flight hours. I can fly this aircraft." "Ma'am, have you ever flown a Boeing 737? "Negative. But I'm a fast learner and right now, I'm all you've got." Another pause. Maya could imagine the discussion happening in the air traffic control center. They were probably calling the airline, the FAA, maybe even the Pentagon to verify her credentials. "Flight 447, understood. We're going to help you land this aircraft. Stand by. We're conferring with Boeing technical experts and 737 captains. How's your fuel situation?" Maya checked the fuel gauges. "We have about 2 hours of fuel. More than enough." "Good. That gives us time." "Lieutenant Commander Chin, you still holding altitude and heading?" "Affirmative. Autopilot engaged. Aircraft is stable." "Excellent. Keep it that way. We're setting up an approach into Dallas-Fort Worth. It's the closest major airport with the longest runways and best emergency response capabilities. Distance to airport is approximately 85 miles. We'll talk you through every single step." Maya felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease. She wasn't alone in this. She had help. "Derek," she said, turning to the flight attendant, "I need you to go back to the cabin and brief the lead flight attendant. Tell them we're going to land in Dallas. Probably in about 45 minutes. They need to prepare the cabin for emergency landing, secure everything, brief passengers on brace positions, all the standard emergency procedures. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." Derek started to leave, then turned back. "Thank you. For stepping up. For saving us." Maya didn't respond. She just nodded and turned back to the instruments. Saving them. That's what everyone would say. But inside, she remembered the people she hadn't saved. The mission that had gone wrong. The reason she'd left the Navy. She pushed those thoughts away. Focus on now. Focus on these 267 people. Over the next 20 minutes, Maya worked with the air traffic controllers and the Boeing technical team they'd brought in. They walked her through the 737 systems, how the flight controls worked, where the important switches were, what the displays meant. Maya absorbed it all like a sponge. Her training had taught her to learn quickly, to adapt to new aircraft, to handle the unexpected. And while a 737 was very different from an F/A-18, the basic principles of flight were universal. The biggest difference, one of the Boeing experts explained over the radio, is that the 737 is much heavier and slower than what you're used to. It doesn't respond as quickly. Everything happens in slow motion compared to a fighter jet. "Understood," Maya said. "Slower reactions, more anticipation needed." "Exactly. Also, you'll be landing much faster than you think you should. A fighter jet might touch down at 130 knots. This plane lands at about 145 knots depending on weight." Maya made mental notes of everything. Landing speed, approach angle, flap settings, gear extension, thrust management, braking procedures. It was a lot of information, but she'd been trained for this. Fighter pilots were taught to handle information overload, to prioritize, to focus on what mattered. "Okay, Lieutenant Commander," the Dallas Center supervisor said. "We're going to start your descent now. Are you ready to disconnect the autopilot and fly manually?" Maya's hands hovered over the controls. This was it. The moment she actually had to fly. Not just sit here monitoring systems, but actually take control of 80 tons of aircraft carrying 267 souls. She thought about her last flight in the Navy. The mission over hostile territory. The surface-to-air missile. Her wingman calling for help. Her decision, the wrong decision. The explosion. The rescue. The investigation. Her hands started to shake. Lieutenant Commander? Are you ready? The controller asked again. Maya closed her eyes. She took 3 deep breaths, a technique she'd learned in therapy. Count to 3, breathe in. Count to 3, breathe out. When she opened her eyes, her hands were steady. Affirmative. I'm ready. Let's fly. Maya reached up and pressed the autopilot disconnect button. Immediately, she felt the weight of the aircraft in her hands. The yoke wanted to move, responding to tiny air currents and pressure changes. She held it steady, getting a feel for the plane. It was heavy like the Boeing expert had said. Nothing like her nimble F/A-18. But it was responsive enough. Flight 447, begin your descent. Reduce altitude to 20,000 feet. Descent rate 1,500 feet per minute. Maya gently pushed the yoke forward. The nose dipped slightly. She watched the vertical speed indicator. 1,000 feet per minute, 1,200, 1,500. Perfect. Reducing throttle, she announced. She pulled the throttle levers back slightly. The engine noise decreased. The aircraft began descending smoothly. Maya made tiny corrections with the yoke, keeping the wings level, the nose at the right angle. Flight 447 looking good. Maintain descent to 20,000 feet. Roger that. In the cabin, passengers felt the descent. Some gripped their armrests. Parents held their children. Everyone was praying, hoping, trusting that the quiet girl from seat 14B knew what she was doing. Maya reached 20,000 feet and leveled off perfectly. Years of training made the maneuver smooth as glass. Beautiful, Flight 447, the controller said. You fly like you've been doing this your whole life. I have, Maya said simply. Just not this particular aircraft. Well, you're doing great. Okay, we're going to vector you toward the airport. Turn right heading 180. Maya banked the aircraft gently to the right. The compass rotated. She stopped at heading 180, due south. Heading 180, Flight 447. Perfect. Now we're going to start configuring the aircraft for landing. First step, extend flaps to position 5. Maya found the flap lever and moved it to the 5 position. She felt the aircraft shudder slightly as the flaps extended from the wings, increasing lift and drag. Flaps 5 confirmed by the indicators, Maya reported. Good. Now reduce speed to 220 knots. Maya pulled the throttles back further. The speed decreased steadily. This was actually going well. Maya allowed herself to feel a tiny bit of hope. Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could. Suddenly, an alarm blared in the cockpit. Red lights flashed on the panel. Hydraulic system failure appeared on the main display. Maya's heart jumped into her throat. Flight 447, what's your status? The controller's voice was urgent. We're showing a system warning. Maya quickly scanned the instruments. Hydraulic pressure in System A was dropping rapidly. Hydraulics powered the flight controls. Without them. Dallas Center, I've got a hydraulic failure. System A is dropping. Pressure down to 30% and falling. Copy that. Stand by. The Boeing expert came on the line. Lieutenant Commander, you have redundant systems. System B should compensate. Check your backup. Maya looked at the hydraulic panel. System B was holding steady at 90%. System B is good. Okay. You'll be fine as long as B holds. But your controls will feel heavier. System A failure means you lose some power assistance. Understood. Maya tested the yoke. It was definitely heavier, requiring more physical force to move. This was bad. In a fighter jet, hydraulic failure was serious. In a commercial jet this size, it was critical. If System B failed too, the plane would become uncontrollable. How's your carbon monoxide situation? The expert asked. Could that be affecting other systems? Maya hadn't thought of that. Carbon monoxide in the air system could be corroding seals, damaging systems. If it had knocked out both pilots, what else was it affecting? Possibly, she said. What's the procedure for shutting down the contaminated air system? That's complicated. Let's focus on landing first. You're only 15 minutes out. 15 minutes? That seemed like an eternity. Flight 447, descend to 10,000 feet. We're setting up your final approach. Maya pushed the yoke forward, fighting the heavier controls. The plane descended, but it felt sluggish now, resistant. In the cabin, passengers could tell something was wrong. The plane's movement had changed, less smooth, more labored. An elderly woman pressed her call button. The head flight attendant, Susan, came to her row. "Is everything okay?" the woman asked. "It feels different." Susan forced a smile. "The pilot is making adjustments for landing. Everything is under control." But Susan didn't know if that was true. She'd been briefed that they had a hydraulic problem. That the woman flying the plane was doing her best. That they should all pray. "Flight 447, you're 10 miles from the airport. You're cleared for landing, runway 18 right. It's 13,400 feet long, plenty of room." Maya could see the airport ahead. The long runways were visible, lined with emergency vehicles. Fire trucks, ambulances, rescue equipment, everything they might need if this went wrong. "Flaps 15, the controller instructed." Maya extended the flaps further. The plane slowed to 180 knots. Landing gear down. This was a critical moment. The landing gear was heavy, and if the hydraulics failed during extension, Maya pulled the gear lever. She heard mechanical grinding. The plane shuddered. Then 3 green lights appeared: left gear down, nose gear down, right gear down. "Gear down and locked," Maya reported, relief in her voice. "Excellent. Flaps 30. Final landing configuration." Maya extended full flaps. The plane slowed to 160 knots. The nose wanted to drop, and she had to pull hard on the yoke to keep it level. Speed 155 knots. Maintain that until 1 mile from the runway. Maya adjusted the throttles. Her arms were aching from fighting the heavy controls. In a fighter jet, the hydraulics made everything light and responsive. This was like wrestling with a truck. 5 miles out. Altitude 3,000 feet. "You're right on the glide slope, flight 447. Maya could see the runway clearly now. It looked narrow from up here, but she knew it was plenty wide. The key was to keep the aircraft stable and lined up. 4 miles. Looking good. The plane hit some turbulence. It rocked slightly. Maya corrected, but with the damaged hydraulics, the correction was sluggish. 3 miles. Altitude 2,000 feet. Speed 155 knots. Perfect, Lieutenant Commander. Maya's arms were burning. Sweat dripped down her face. She blinked it away, keeping her eyes on the runway. 2 miles. Altitude 1,200 feet. The ground was rushing up now. Maya could see cars on the highway below. Buildings. Trees. 1 mile. Speed 145 knots. That's your landing speed. Hold it there. Maya adjusted the throttles, fine-tuning the speed. 150 knots. 148. 145. Perfect. Half mile. You're lined up beautifully. Remember, fly the plane all the way to the ground. Don't try to flare too much. Let it settle onto the runway. Maya's instructor at Navy Flight School had said the same thing about carrier landings. Don't flare. Just fly it onto the deck. 1/4 mile. Altitude 200 feet. The runway filled her entire field of vision. The threshold markers were right there. 100 feet. Looking good. Maya's hands were locked on the yoke, her eyes focused with laser intensity. 50 feet. You've got this. The wheels were feet above the pavement. 30 feet. 20 feet. 10 feet. The main wheels touched the runway. Art. The plane bounced once, slamming back down. Maya immediately pulled the throttles to idle and deployed the thrust reversers. The engines roared as they directed their power forward, helping slow the massive aircraft. Maya pressed hard on the brake pedals. The plane decelerated. The end of the runway was approaching, but they had plenty of space. The speed dropped, 100 knots, 80, 60, 40. At 20 knots, the aircraft rolled to a stop, right in the center of the runway, 2,000 feet from the end. For a moment, Maya just sat there, hands still on the controls, unable to quite believe it was over. Then the cabin erupted in cheers and applause. Emergency crews surrounded the aircraft immediately. Paramedics rushed aboard to check the pilots. Both were alive, recovering now that they were breathing clean air. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stood on shaky legs. She'd been gripping the controls so hard for so long that her hands had cramped. She flexed her fingers, trying to get feeling back. Derek appeared at the cockpit door, tears streaming down his face. "You did it? You actually did it." "We did it," Maya corrected. "Team effort." As she stepped out of the cockpit, every passenger in first class stood up and applauded. Some were crying. Others were laughing with relief. Susan, the head flight attendant, hugged Maya tightly. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Maya walked down the aisle toward the exit. Every passenger she passed thanked her, touched her shoulder, looked at her with awe and gratitude. When she reached row 14, the businessman from 14A stood up. "You were sitting right there. Right next to me. And I never knew." "That's how I wanted it," Maya said quietly. "Why?" he asked. "If I could do what you just did, I'd tell everyone." Maya didn't answer. She just kept walking. At the exit, emergency stairs had been pulled up to the door. Maya descended, her legs still wobbly, her body exhausted. At the bottom of the stairs, a group of people waited: airport officials, FAA investigators, airline executives, and dozens of media with cameras. One man stepped forward. He wore a Navy uniform with captain's bars on his shoulders. "Lieutenant Commander Chin," he said formally, then saluted. Maya instinctively returned the salute, her military training taking over. "Captain Richard Foster, U.S. Navy," the man said. "I was contacted by Dallas Center during your emergency. They wanted to verify your credentials." "I'm no longer in the Navy, sir," Maya said. I know why you left. I know what happened on that mission." Foster's voice softened. "I also know that today you saved 267 lives. That counts for something." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "The people I didn't save, they count too." "Yes, they do," Foster agreed. "But running from your past doesn't honor them. Living well, using your gifts, saving lives when you can, that honors them." The media wanted interviews. The airline wanted to thank her publicly. The FAA needed a full debrief. But Maya just wanted to disappear again. Captain Foster helped her escape through a side entrance. He drove her to a quiet hotel near the airport, away from the cameras and reporters. In a small conference room, Maya finally told someone the full story. The story she'd been hiding for 2 years. "It was a strike mission over hostile territory," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "My wingman and I were taking out an enemy radar installation. Everything was going perfectly. But then..." She paused, the memories flooding back. "A surface-to-air missile launch. I saw it coming. I called for my wingman to brake right. But I broke left, the wrong direction. Standard procedure was to brake toward the threat, not away. But I panicked, just for a second. And that second was enough." Captain Foster listened quietly, not interrupting. "The missile hit my wingman's aircraft. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez. She was 26 years old. Married. A baby daughter." Maya's voice broke. "She ejected, but she was injured in the bailout. We got her back eventually, but she lost her leg. Her career was over." "And you felt responsible," Foster said gently. "I was responsible. The investigation cleared me, said it was an acceptable tactical decision, that the missile probably would have hit one of us regardless. But I know the truth. I broke the wrong way. I panicked. And Sarah paid the price." Maya wiped tears from her cheeks. "So I resigned my commission. I couldn't fly anymore. Every time I got in a cockpit, I saw Sarah's plane getting hit. I heard her voice on the radio. I saw her family at the hospital." "Is that why you were hiding? The hoodie, the glasses, the middle seat." "I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I didn't want anyone asking about my service, my flying. I just wanted to be nobody." Foster nodded slowly. "Maya, can I tell you something? I've been in the Navy for 30 years. I've made mistakes too. Every pilot has. The difference between a good pilot and a great pilot isn't that they never make mistakes, it's what they do after." He leaned forward. "You made a split-second decision in combat. Was it perfect? Maybe not. But you survived and you learned. And today, when 267 people needed someone to step up, you didn't hide. You didn't let your fear win. You saved them all." "But what if I had frozen?" Maya asked. "What if I had panicked again?" "But you didn't. That's what counts." The next morning, Maya's face was on every news channel in the country. Despite her attempts to avoid publicity, someone had taken video of the landing. Her story was everywhere. "Mystery woman saves 267 lives. Former Navy pilot comes out of hiding to land crippled plane. Hero in seat 14B." Maya sat in her hotel room watching the coverage with mixed feelings. So much for being invisible. There was a knock on her door. She opened it to find Derek, the flight attendant, standing there with a small group of people behind him. "I hope you don't mind," Derek said. "But there are some people who wanted to thank you in person." Behind him were passengers from Flight 447. The businessman from 14A. The woman from 14C. Families with children. The elderly woman who had been so scared. One by one they came into the room and thanked Maya. Some hugged her. Some just shook her hand. One little girl gave her a drawing she'd made, a picture of Maya flying the plane with hearts and stars around it. "You're my hero," the girl said simply. Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "You know what? You can be a hero too. You don't have to fly planes. You just have to be brave when it matters." A woman stepped forward, younger than Maya, with a baby in her arms. "My name is Jennifer Martinez." Maya's breath caught. Martinez. Could it be? "Sarah Martinez is my older sister," Jennifer confirmed. "I saw the news. I saw your name. I had to come." Maya felt like the floor was dropping out from under her. "Sarah's sister. Here. No. I'm so sorry," Maya whispered. "What happened to Sarah?" "Wasn't your fault," Jennifer interrupted firmly. "My sister has told me the story 100 times. She doesn't blame you. She never blamed you. The only person who blamed you was you. But her leg, her career, is different now, yes. But she's happy. She's an instructor at Top Gun now, teaching the next generation of pilots. She's got a great husband and a beautiful daughter. She's living her life, Maya. She moved on. Why haven't you?" Maya didn't have an answer for that. Jennifer shifted the baby in her arms. "Sarah asked me to tell you something. She said, tell Maya that one bad decision in a war zone doesn't define a pilot. Tell her that heroism isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up when people need you. Tell her I'm proud of her. And tell her it's time to forgive herself." Maya burst into tears. 2 years of guilt, pain, and shame came pouring out. Jennifer hugged her, baby and all. "It's okay. Let it out." A week later, Maya received multiple job offers. Airlines wanted her as a pilot. Defense contractors wanted her as a test pilot. The Navy wanted her back. But the offer that surprised her most came from a small flight school in Colorado. "We train the next generation of pilots," the owner explained over the phone. "Not just how to fly, but how to handle emergencies, how to make decisions under pressure, how to be brave when it matters. We'd be honored if you'd join us as an instructor." Maya thought about it. Teaching. Passing on her knowledge. Helping other pilots learn from her mistakes so they wouldn't have to make them. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Take all the time you need." That night, Maya did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She went to an airport observation area and watched planes take off and land. The roar of the engines. The grace of the aircraft as they climbed into the sky. The precision of the landings. She missed it. God, she missed it so much. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Maya? It's Sarah Martinez." Maya almost dropped her phone. "Sarah. I don't know what to say. How about it's good to hear from you, Sarah?" There was warmth in Sarah's voice, not anger. "It is. It really is. Your sister told me what you said. About forgiving myself. Did you listen?" "I'm trying. It's hard. I know. But Maya, listen to me. You're one of the best pilots I ever flew with. What happened wasn't your fault. And what you did on Flight 447, that was incredible. You saved all those people. That's who you are. Not the person who made one split-second decision in combat. You're the person who steps up when others need you." Maya wiped tears from her eyes. "I want to fly again. I'm scared, but I want to." "Good. Fear means you're taking it seriously. But don't let it stop you. The world needs pilots like you." After they hung up, Maya looked up at the sky. A plane was taking off, climbing steeply, heading toward the sunset. She pulled out her phone and called the flight school in Colorado. "This is Maya Chin. About that instructor position. I accept." 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a classroom full of student pilots. They were young, eager, excited about learning to fly. Just like she had been once. "My name is Maya Chin," she began. "Before I teach you how to fly, I want to tell you a story about failure." She told them about the mission that went wrong. About her mistake. About Sarah Martinez. "I tell you this because you need to understand something. You will make mistakes. Every pilot does. Some mistakes have consequences. Some are small. Some are big. But mistakes don't define you. What defines you is what you do next." She told them about hiding for 2 years. About being the quiet girl in seat 14B. About the moment when she had to choose between staying hidden or stepping up. 267 people lived because I chose to step up. Not because I was perfect. Not because I never made mistakes. But because when it mattered, I was willing to try. One student raised his hand. "What if you had frozen? What if you had panicked again?" "That was my fear," Maya admitted. "But you know what I learned? Fear is information. It tells you that something matters. It doesn't tell you that you can't do it. The bravest people aren't the ones who feel no fear. They're the ones who feel fear and act anyway. At the end of class, a young woman approached Maya. Thank you for being honest about your mistakes. Most instructors act like they're perfect. Nobody's perfect, Maya said. But everyone can be brave. That afternoon, Maya had her first solo flight in her own small aircraft, a sleek two-seater that the flight school had purchased for advanced training. She took off smoothly, climbed into the brilliant blue sky, and for the first time in 2 years felt complete peace. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was flying. She thought about Sarah Martinez, now teaching at Top Gun, probably in the air right now with her own students. She thought about the 267 passengers from Flight 447, all safely home with their families. She thought about all the students she would teach, all the pilots she would help train, all the lives that would be touched by her willingness to stop hiding and start living again. Maya rolled the aircraft into a smooth turn, the sun glinting off the wings. Below her, the Colorado mountains stretched out in majestic beauty. She had been just the quiet girl in seat 14B, trying to be invisible, trying to escape her past. But when the captain asked for fighter pilots, she had answered the call. And in doing so, she had found herself again. 1 year later, Maya was once again on a commercial flight. This time, she was traveling to Washington, D.C., to receive a commendation from the FAA for her actions on Flight 447. By chance, or maybe fate, her assigned seat was 14B. The middle seat. The same seat where she had been sitting that day. But this time, Maya didn't pull up her hood and hide behind a book. This time, she wore her flight instructor jacket with pride. When passengers recognized her, and several did, she smiled and chatted with them about flying. The flight attendant stopped at her row. Miss Chin, the captain would like to invite you to visit the cockpit after takeoff. I'd like that, Maya said. After they reached cruising altitude, Maya visited the cockpit. The captain and first officer both stood to shake her hand. It's an honor to have you aboard, the captain said. We all heard about what you did. Just doing what any pilot would do, Maya said. No, the captain corrected gently. Not any pilot. It takes someone special to overcome their fears, to step up when it matters most. You're an inspiration to all of us. As Maya returned to her seat, she thought about how much had changed in 1 year. She was flying regularly now. She was teaching. She was helping others. She had reconnected with her military friends, including Sarah, who she now spoke with every week. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't the quiet girl trying to be invisible. She was Maya Chin. Fighter pilot. Instructor. Hero. Survivor. And most importantly, she had finally forgiven herself. As the plane flew through the clear sky toward Washington, Maya closed her eyes and smiled. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Not in seat 14B hiding from the world. But out in the open, living her life, using her gifts, making a difference. The quiet girl had found her voice again. And the world was better for it.